Professor Kleebrix Mundelhorn had dedicated his entire career to making the most spectacular archaeological blunders in galactic history. His latest achievement? Accidentally detonating 3 ancient burial sites while looking for his lost sandwich. The sandwich, incidentally, had been sitting in his left pocket the entire time, slowly transforming into what could charitably be called biological warfare, and less charitably described as the reason his assistant wore a hazmat suit to work. So when his excavation team on the forgotten planet of Griselda Prime stumbled upon what appeared to be a suit of armor made from crystallized starlight, everyone's first instinct was to run. This was a perfectly sensible response, considering that Kleebrix's previous discoveries had included a cursed coffee mug that insulted anyone who drank from it, a portal that led directly to the universe's most boring tax office, and a mystical artifact that turned out to be someone's extremely sophisticated doorstop. "Don't touch anything!" shouted his assistant, Vorthak the perpetually nervous, whose official job title was Senior Archaeological Damage Control Specialist, and whose unofficial job description was person who apologizes to planetary governments after Kleebrix accidentally destroys their cultural heritage. This was excellent advice, considering Kleebrix's track record included accidentally awakening a hibernating space kraken, somehow managing to get himself banned from 14 different planets for crimes against archaeology, and once mistaking a functioning intergalactic peace treaty for an ancient shopping list. But there it was, sitting in the middle of what used to be a temple before Kleebrix had enthusiastically bulldozed through it while chasing what he insisted was probably a really important artifact, but turned out to be a particularly shiny piece of space debris. The armor gleamed with an inner light that seemed to pulse with cosmic significance or possibly indigestion. It was impossible to tell, really, since cosmic significance and cosmic indigestion looked remarkably similar when viewed through Kleebrix's cracked spectacles. Next to the armor sat a metal plaque covered in symbols that hurt your eyes to look at directly, and made your brain feel like it was trying to solve calculus while riding a roller coaster blindfolded. The symbols seemed to shift and change when you weren't looking directly at them, like cosmic graffiti with commitment issues. "What does it say?" demanded Kleebrix, squinting at the plaque through his cracked spectacles, which had been damaged during an unfortunate incident involving a particularly vindictive ancient statue, and what Vorthak insisted was definitely not the statue moving on its own, Professor. That's just the planet's unusually aggressive weather patterns. Vorthak consulted his universal translator, a device that claimed to understand 47,000 different languages, but had never met a simple hello it couldn't turn into an accidental declaration of war. The translator promptly caught fire, which was actually an improvement over its usual performance. The backup translator exploded in a shower of sparks that spelled out what looked like profanity in 17 different alphabets. The emergency translator started playing what sounded like elevator music mixed with the mating calls of extinct space whales, which, while atmospheric, wasn't particularly helpful for translation purposes. "I think," Vorthak said carefully, adjusting his hazmat suit and trying not to look directly at his professor's enthusiastic grin, "it says something about chosen ones, or possibly frozen bones." The translation matrix seems to be having a nervous breakdown, which, to be fair, is a perfectly reasonable response to anything connected to your work, Professor. The symbols on the plaque pulsed once more, then settled into what appeared to be a crude drawing of a stick figure wearing what might have been armor, or possibly a very elaborate hat. Below it, in letters that seemed to have been carved by someone with either a very shaky hand or a very sarcastic sense of humor, were the words, "Instructions. Figure it out yourself. You're supposed to be the chosen one." "Well," said Kleebrix cheerfully, completely missing the sarcasm that was practically radiating from the ancient inscription, "that's certainly straightforward. I do appreciate clear communication from our archaeological subjects. Vorthak made a noise that was part sigh, part whimper, and entirely professional despair. 3 months later, the armor had become the most talked-about archaeological find since the discovery of the lost bathroom of the ancient overlords, which had revolutionized galactic plumbing and started 3 separate religious movements dedicated to the worship of properly functioning toilets. Every major civilization in the galaxy wanted the armor, though nobody could figure out what it actually did, which was fairly typical for ancient artifacts and most modern technology as well. The crystalline hegemony claimed it belonged to their ancestors, citing as evidence the fact that it was shiny, and their ancestors had been notorious for collecting shiny objects, much like cosmic magpies with delusions of grandeur. The Tentacle Federation insisted it was obviously tentacle-friendly, based on what their chief xenoarchaeologist described as intuitive tentacle resonance patterns, which sounded impressive until you realized their chief xenoarchaeologist was a 17-year-old intern who had gotten the job by accident after filling out the wrong application form. The robotic collective argued that only machines could properly appreciate its engineering, though they had to admit they couldn't actually scan it, since every probe they sent near the armor came back, speaking ancient poetry and refusing to calculate anything more complex than the square root of 9. One probe had actually submitted a formal request to be transferred to the philosophy department, which didn't exist in robotic society and had caused a minor existential crisis among their command structure. The gastropod empire wanted it because it looked important, and they had a policy of wanting anything that looked important regardless of whether they understood what it was. This policy had served them well in the past, though it had also resulted in them accidentally conquering 3 star systems while trying to buy groceries, and declaring war on mathematics after a particularly confusing encounter with a tax form. The ethereal beings of pure thought claimed the armor was clearly designed for incorporeal entities, though they couldn't explain why incorporeal beings would need armor, or indeed why they were interested in physical objects at all. When pressed on this point, they became very quiet and started talking about how corporeal beings wouldn't understand and needed to expand their consciousness, which was their standard response to any question they couldn't answer. Which is how the armor ended up at Bingle's intergalactic auction house, the most prestigious marketplace in known space, where civilizations went to buy things they couldn't afford and didn't need. The auction house's motto, proudly displayed in 47 languages above the main entrance, read, "If you can't afford it, we'll find a way to make you buy it anyway." Mortimer Bingle himself was a marvel of evolutionary accident and questionable business practices. A rotund alien who looked like a cross between a toad, a used car salesman, and a disco ball that had given up on life, he possessed 6 arms, 12 eyes, and an alarming tendency to rub all 6 hands together simultaneously when he sensed a profitable deal approaching. His species, the Bingletons, were renowned throughout the galaxy for their ability to sell ice to frozen planets and sand to desert worlds, usually at the same time and to the same customers. "Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted life forms," Mortimer announced through the auction house's sound system, which had been designed by the same people who created the Cosmic Opera House and consequently made everyone sound like they were singing dramatic arias about mundane topics. "Today, we auction the mysterious armor of unspecified but probably important origins. Starting bid is a mere 10 million galactic credits, or your equivalent in rare minerals, embarrassing family secrets, or particularly amusing interpretive dances." The auction hall was packed with representatives from every major civilization in the known galaxy, plus several minor ones, a few that nobody was quite sure actually existed, and at least one delegation that appeared to be made entirely of sentient punctuation marks who communicated through strategic placement of semicolons. The bidding started at 10 million galactic credits and immediately went completely insane. The crystalline hegemony's representative, Admiral Chimesalot, whose real name was unpronounceable to anyone without the ability to ring like a dinner bell, bid 50 million, while his crystal body played what sounded like a very expensive wind chime concerto. The Tentacle Federation countered with 100 million galactic credits, 3 of their finest breeding tentacles, and a signed photograph of their emperor doing something that was either a traditional dance or an attempt to untangle himself from his own appendages. Their representative, Ambassador Squishy McTentacleface, whose actual name was far more dignified but completely unpronounceable by beings without at least 47 tongues, waved several appendages in what their translator helpfully announced was either confident bidding or mild indigestion. Mild. The robotic collective's offer was characteristically precise. They would compute pi to exactly 1 billion decimal places, calculate the meaning of life to 17 significant figures, and throw in a complete analysis of why organic beings insisted on having feelings when they served no apparent logical purpose. The diplomatic unit, Model XB47 Why Do Humans Do That, added that they would also include complementary tech support for any civilization that still used operating systems older than the current galactic epoch. The gastropod empire bid by simply declaring that they owned everything in the auction house already and demanding to know why everyone else was trying to steal their property. This was their standard negotiation strategy and had worked surprisingly well in the past, mainly because most civilizations found it easier to just give them what they wanted, rather than try to explain concepts like ownership and property law to beings who thought possession was 9/10 of the law, and the other 10th was whoever had the biggest slime trail. Meanwhile, on the far edge of the auction hall, tucked behind a potted plant that may or may not have been sentient, the auction house's insurance policy specifically excluded responsibility for any plants that achieved consciousness during events. A human named Percival Wigglesworth was having what could generously be described as the worst day of his life, and uncharitably described as a cosmic comedy of errors orchestrated by malevolent probability demons. Percival had been attending the Intergalactic Tourism Conference on the resort moon of Splendida, where he'd been looking forward to 3 weeks of what the brochure promised were relaxing activities for the interstellar traveler, which he'd assumed meant lying on a beach with a cocktail rather than attending seminars with titles like Advanced Xenobiology for the Hospitality Professional and How to File Insurance Claims When Your Hotel is Eaten by Space Whales. The problems had started when he'd taken what he thought was a shuttle to the beach. The shuttle, operated by Cosmic Transport Solutions, whose company motto was, "We'll get you there eventually, probably weather and probability permitting," had been staffed by an artificial intelligence that had apparently learned customer service from a particularly vindictive bureaucrat and navigation from a cosmic entity with a peculiar sense of humor. Destination, Beach Resort Epsilon 7, Percival had said politely to the AI, settling into what appeared to be a comfortable seat that immediately began analyzing his posture and offering unsolicited advice about his spine alignment. "Processing request," the AI had replied, in a voice like honey mixed with industrial lubricant. "Did you mean Beach Resort Epsilon 7, the popular vacation destination, or Beach Resort Epsilon 7, the maximum security prison for reformed space pirates that coincidentally has the same name?" "The vacation destination, obviously," Percival had said, beginning to suspect that this might not be his day. "Understood. Please note that due to a clerical error involving quantum navigation matrices, temporal displacement fields, and a particularly unhelpful intern who may or may not exist in this dimension, you will be arriving at your destination approximately 3 hours before you left, in a different star system, wearing clothes that haven't been invented yet." "I'm sorry, what?" "Would you prefer the complimentary in-flight entertainment? Today's selection includes asteroid mining safety videos from the dawn of time, the complete works of Vogon poetry, and 17 hours of elevator music played by sentient mushrooms. Udun! And that was how Percival found himself at an alien auction house, wearing nothing but flip-flops, swim trunks that had somehow become sentient during the trip and kept offering fashion advice, and a T-shirt that read, "My other spaceship is your mom," in letters that changed color based on the reader's emotional state. The shirt was currently displaying a pattern of confused blues and panicked yellows that accurately reflected Percival's state of mind. "Excuse me," he said politely to a nearby security guard who appeared to be made entirely of crystallized mathematics and was solving differential equations for entertainment. "Could you point me toward the bathroom? I've been holding it for 3 hours, and I'm beginning to think my kidneys are plotting against me." Duh. The security guard's equations flickered with what might have been confusion, amusement, or possibly a particularly complex calculation involving the philosophical implications of organic waste management systems. Several variables rearranged themselves into what could have been either a helpful direction or a critique of Percival's life choices. The guard pointed toward a corridor marked with symbols that definitely weren't universal bathroom pictographs, though they did seem to suggest something involving circles, arrows, and what appeared to be a small explosion. The mathematical being's equations shifted again and suddenly displayed the message, "Good luck, organic entity. Try not to accidentally end reality while looking for toilet." "Right," Percival muttered to himself, "because that's not ominous at all." As he wandered deeper into the auction house, passing displays of items that ranged from mildly incomprehensible to actively defying the laws of physics, the bidding in the main hall reached fever pitch. The Void Dwellers had just offered to sacrifice their home dimension to the highest bidder, which seemed excessive, even by auction house standards. The Time Lords had countered by offering to make the auction happen yesterday, which created a temporal paradox that gave everyone present a mild headache, a strange sensation of déjà vu, and an inexplicable craving for fish and chips. 5 billion credits! Screamed Admiral Chimesalot, his crystalline body now ringing like a fire alarm during an earthquake. Plus our sovereign right to rename 3 star systems after our glorious crystalline heritage. 6 billion and our firstborn hive mind, shrieked the representative of the insectoid collective, their compound eyes glittering with desperate desire and what appeared to be several small gambling debts. Also, we throw in free pest control services for any civilization that needs them. We're very good at pest control. We should know. The ethereal beings of pure thought offered to share their deepest philosophical insights, which sounded impressive until you realized that their deepest philosophical insights mostly consisted of wondering why physical beings needed to eat food when they could simply exist on the cosmic energy of pure contemplation. This offer was quietly ignored by everyone present. At that exact moment, Percival burst through what he thought was the bathroom door, but was actually the VIP viewing area, stumbled down the steps with all the grace of a drunk penguin on roller skates, and landed face first on the auction platform right next to the armor, with a sound like a cosmic slapstick routine being performed by professional comedians. "Oh dear God, finally!" he gasped, struggling to his feet while his sentient swim trunks offered helpful commentary about his landing technique. "I don't suppose you folks know where the loo is, because I'm about to have a very embarrassing situation here, and I've already had enough embarrassing situations today to last me several lifetimes." The auction hall fell silent, with the kind of silence usually reserved for moments of cosmic significance, natural disasters, or the awkward pause after someone makes a joke that nobody understands. Every eye, optical sensor, compound visual organ, and psychic perception device in the building focused on the confused human in beachwear, standing next to the most coveted artifact in galactic history. Then the armor began to glow. not the gentle, mystical glow it had maintained for the past 3 months while sitting in climate-controlled storage and being examined by teams of experts who had concluded that it was definitely armor-shaped and probably important. This was a brilliant, pulsing radiance that made everyone's retinas file formal complaints with their respective nervous systems and demand hazard pay. Ancient symbols appeared in the air around the armor, spinning and rearranging themselves into patterns that suggested either cosmic significance, a really complicated recipe for space pasta, or possibly directions to the nearest rest stop. The symbols glowed with their own inner light and seemed to be having an animated conversation with each other, though what they were discussing was anybody's guess. "Oh, bloody hell!" Percival yelped as tendrils of pure light reached out from the armor and began wrapping around him like the universe's most enthusiastic octopus meeting its favorite person after a long absence. "This isn't the toilet at all. This is some sort of cosmic thingy doing cosmic things, and I just wanted to find the bathroom." The armor's tendrils of light seemed to pause, as if considering this complaint, then continued their enthusiastic embrace with what could only be described as cosmic determination, mixed with a complete disregard for personal space. The auction hall erupted into chaos that made previous eruptions of chaos look like polite tea parties. The crystalline hegemony's representative shattered into 1,000 tinkling pieces from sheer indignation, creating a sound like a very expensive wind chime being attacked by an enthusiastic toddler with a hammer. The Tentacle Federation began flailing their appendages in what was either rage, an interpretive dance about loss and betrayal, or an attempt to flag down a cosmic taxi. The robotic collective started calculating the probability of this outcome, which turned out to be so unlikely that their processors began questioning the fundamental nature of reality, mathematics, and whether their warranty covered existential crises. Several units began displaying error messages in languages that hadn't been invented yet. "What is happening?" shrieked Mortimer Bingle as his carefully orchestrated auction dissolved into pandemonium, his 6 hands ringing against each other in a display of distress that looked like he was trying to squeeze stress out of thin air. "The armor was supposed to choose the highest bidder, not some random primate in beach attire. This is going to ruin my reputation. I'll never be able to show my faces in polite auction society again." But the armor had other ideas, and those ideas apparently involved completely ignoring several billion credits worth of perfectly reasonable bids in favor of a confused human who just wanted to use the facilities. The light intensified until everyone in the hall had to shield their eyes or risk temporary blindness, and several sensitive species had to be escorted out by medical staff after their visual organs started playing what sounded like cosmic elevator music. Suddenly the light faded, and Percival found himself wearing what felt like liquid starlight, molded into the shape of the most comfortable pajamas he'd ever experienced. The armor had fitted itself to his body with the precision of a master tailor who had been studying his measurements for years, and the enthusiasm of a golden retriever meeting its owner after a long day at work. "Oh," Percival said, looking down at himself in amazement while his sentient swim trunks offered color commentary on the fashion transformation. "This is actually quite nice. Very breathable, surprisingly comfortable, though I still really need to find that bathroom." A holographic manual materialized in front of him, hovering at eye level like an overly helpful shop assistant. It was written in what appeared to be 47 different alien languages, none of which made any sense whatsoever, plus several that seemed to be making up new symbols as he watched. The cover read, "Congratulations on your poor life choices, a beginner's guide to accidental cosmic significance." The first page seemed to be warning him about something involving cosmic responsibilities, the proper care and feeding of ancient artifacts, and the importance of keeping a towel handy at all times. The second page was entirely devoted to what looked like a recipe for something called quantum soup, which required ingredients that probably didn't exist, and cooking methods that definitely violated several laws of physics. "Warning!" the manual began in a cheerful voice that sounded like a demented game show host who had consumed too much cosmic caffeine. "Congratulations on being chosen by the armor of questionable decision-making. Please note that previous wearers have included 3 galactic emperors who died of embarrassment after accidentally declaring war on their own reflection, 17 prophets who prophesied the wrong things and had to issue cosmic retractions, one particularly confused space cow who achieved enlightenment but couldn't figure out how to turn it off, and a traveling salesman who accidentally sold the concept of gravity to a civilization that really shouldn't have had it. The auction hall had descended into complete mayhem, which was actually an improvement over the regular chaos, since at least mayhem had a certain organizational structure to it. Security forces were trying to restore order, but it's difficult to maintain dignity when you're chasing a human in magical armor who's desperately looking for a restroom while accidentally activating ancient powers every time he moves. "Please remain calm," announced the armor's manual as Percival inadvertently walked through a wall, leaving a perfectly human-shaped hole behind him like something from a cartoon. "You have just activated the phase walking ability. This allows you to pass through solid matter, though we recommend avoiding this during mealtimes as the results can be quite messy and may violate local health codes." "I'm walking through walls!" Percival shouted in panic as he emerged from the other side of the building, covered in quantum residue that sparkled like cosmic glitter and made him smell faintly of ozone and possibility. "This is not what I signed up for when I booked that beach vacation. I specifically requested the relaxation package, not the accidentally become a cosmic chosen one package." His sentient swim trunks, apparently unaffected by the phase walking, commented helpfully, "Well, technically you didn't read the fine print on your travel insurance, which specifically excludes coverage for acts of cosmic irony, temporal displacement, and encounters with items of questionable archaeological significance." "Whose side are you on?" Percival demanded of his own clothing. The crystalline hegemony's military forces had arrived, summoned by emergency transponders that automatically activated whenever someone's day went from bad to cosmically significant. Their crystal ships bristled with weapons that could reduce planets to cosmic dust, though they were painted in cheerful pastels, because the hegemony believed that if you were going to potentially end civilizations, you should at least do it with style. The Tentacle Federation's war vessels looked like enormous flying squids having a bad hair day, if squids had hair and flew through space, while bristling with enough weaponry to make small stars nervous. Their ships were organic constructs that had been grown rather than built, and consequently had a tendency to get distracted by shiny objects and occasionally tried to mate with particularly attractive asteroids. The robotic collective had sent their diplomatic ship, which was roughly the size of a small moon, painted a very polite shade of beige, and equipped with enough computational power to calculate the exact probability of peace breaking out. It was also armed with weapons of mass mathematical destruction that could reduce enemy fleets to their component equations, though they preferred to use strongly worded letters and carefully calculated insults. "Surrender the armor, human!" demanded Admiral Chryslock of the hegemony, his voice ringing like a dinner bell made of diamonds being struck by a hammer made of more diamonds. "That artifact belongs to the superior crystalline life forms. We have filed the proper paperwork and everything." "Nonsense," argued Captain Tentacles of the Federation, his 12 eyes weaving in complex patterns that meant either "prepare for battle," "would you like some tea," or "I think I left the oven on back home." The armor clearly responds to tentacle-based life forms. The human is obviously just a temporary malfunction in its selection process. Have you tried turning him off and on again? Meanwhile, Percival was having his own problems with the armor, which seemed to interpret his every movement as a command to activate some new and usually inconvenient power. When he tried to scratch his nose, he'd accidentally shot a beam of pure energy that had carved his initials into the moon above them, along with what appeared to be a smiley face, and the cosmic equivalent of PW was here. When he'd attempted to wave hello to the approaching ships, he'd somehow created a small black hole that had immediately apologized for existing and disappeared in a puff of embarrassed smoke. "This is ridiculous," he muttered, trying to figure out how to turn down the armor's enthusiasm while avoiding activation of any more cosmic powers. "All I wanted was a nice vacation, maybe some sun, perhaps a cocktail with one of those little umbrellas that serve no practical purpose but make you feel fancy. Instead, I'm apparently the chosen one for a piece of ancient technology that seems to have been designed by cosmic comedians with a questionable sense of humor." The manual flickered helpfully, its pages turning themselves with the sound of cosmic wind chimes. "Oh, you're quite close. The armor of questionable decision-making was indeed created by the ancient civilization known as the Cosmic Comedians. They were the galaxy's premier practical jokers until they pulled one prank too many and accidentally erased themselves from existence while trying to convince the universe that gravity was just a suggestion and taxes were optional." As three massive fleets converged on the auction house, in what was shaping up to be either the most expensive salvage operation in galactic history or the beginning of the most ridiculous war ever fought, Percival made a startling discovery that changed everything. The bathroom he'd been looking for was right behind him. It had been there the entire time, marked with a simple, clear sign that read "Facilities" in perfectly understandable universal standard, along with helpful pictographs that even a confused human in magical armor could interpret. There was even a smaller sign below it that read, "Sorry for any inconvenience caused by cosmic events. Management is not responsible for temporal paradoxes, dimensional rifts, or accidentally becoming the chosen one while looking for the toilet." "You've got to be kidding me," Percival groaned, staring at the door that had been literally right there the entire time. 20 minutes later, feeling considerably more comfortable and having had time to read several chapters of the armor's manual in peace, Chapter 4. "So you've accidentally started a galactic incident, a troubleshooting guide." Percival emerged from the bathroom to find that the three fleets had organized themselves into what appeared to be the galaxy's most dangerous game of rock, paper, scissors to determine who got first dibs on demanding his surrender. The crystalline hegemony was using crystal formation Beta 7, which looked like rock but was technically classified as a mineral structure. The Tentacle Federation had chosen writhing mass of appendages, which was similar to paper but with more suction cups. The Robotic Collective had selected precisely calculated geometric pattern, which was mathematically superior to scissors but took 17 minutes to execute properly. Right then, Percival said to himself, consulting the armor's manual, which had helpfully bookmarked itself to Chapter 12, "So you've accidentally started a galactic war, a beginner's guide. Let's see what this thing can actually do besides make me walk through walls and carve graffiti into celestial bodies." Chapter 12 was surprisingly thorough, though it did recommend keeping a towel handy at all times, which seemed like oddly specific advice for a piece of ancient alien technology. It also suggested that in case of galactic incidents, the wearer should remain calm, avoid making sudden movements, and remember that most cosmic crises can be resolved with a proper cup of tea and some biscuits. The armor, it turned out, had been created by a civilization with a very peculiar sense of humor and an even more peculiar understanding of cosmic responsibility. The Cosmic Comedians had been the galaxy's premier practical jokers until they'd pulled one prank too many and accidentally erased themselves from existence while trying to convince the universe that gravity was just a suggestion, mathematics was optional, and the speed of light was more of a gentle recommendation than an actual physical law. Before their spectacular exit from reality, which had involved a rubber duck, 3 temporal paradoxes, and a very confused physics professor, they'd created the armor as their final joke on an unsuspecting universe. It was designed to choose the most inappropriate person possible and then make them just competent enough to succeed at whatever cosmic crisis happened to be occurring at the time, usually through a combination of blind luck, cosmic irony, and the universe's apparent sense of humor. The previous chosen one, the manual explained cheerfully while displaying what appeared to be cosmic home videos, was a space accountant named Griselda Numbercruncher who accidentally prevented a war by filing the enemy's taxes incorrectly and discovering they owed the Galactic Revenue Service approximately 14 trillion credits in back payments. Before that, it was a cosmic librarian called Dewey Catalogson who saved the galaxy by organizing the ancient scrolls of doom in alphabetical order, which apparently broke their curse and turned them into a very comprehensive encyclopedia of cake recipes. Percival looked up at the 3 fleets that were now engaged in increasingly complex negotiations involving interpretive dance, mathematical theorems, what appeared to be a heated discussion about the proper way to fold fitted sheets across multiple dimensions, and a philosophical debate about whether hot dogs were sandwiches that had somehow become a matter of interstellar diplomacy. "So what you're telling me," he said to the armor, whose manual was now showing him helpful diagrams of cosmic crisis resolution techniques, "is that I'm supposed to solve this by being spectacularly unqualified for it?" "Exactly," the manual chirped, its pages fluttering with what could only be described as enthusiasm. The cosmic comedians believed that the universe took itself far too seriously and needed more random chaos to keep things interesting. Hence, the armor that chooses people based on their complete lack of relevant skills, cosmic significance, or any reasonable expectation of success. At that moment, as if summoned by the mention of things getting more chaotic, space began to tear itself apart with the sound of cosmic fabric ripping, which was remarkably similar to the sound of regular fabric. Ripping, but with more echo and a faint smell of ozone. The fabric of reality developed what could only be described as a cosmic snag, and through the hole stepped something that made everyone present suddenly very aware of how much they enjoyed being alive, breathing, and existing in a universe where the laws of physics were generally reliable. It was tall, dark, dramatically dressed, and radiated the kind of malevolent intelligence that spent its free time rearranging furniture so people would stub their toes in the dark and putting up signs that said, "wet paint," on things that weren't actually painted. "Ah," said the entity in a voice like velvet wrapped around a chainsaw that had been dipped in honey and then used to cut through nightmares. "The armor of questionable decision-making. I've been looking for that for approximately 10,000 years, 3 months, 2 days, 7 hours, and 43 minutes. Not that I'm keeping track or anything." The entity paused dramatically, its cape billowing in the solar wind, despite the complete absence of atmosphere, and continued, "Hand it over, little human, and I might allow your species to continue existing. I might even let you keep your current dimensional configuration, though I make no promises about your planet's orbital mechanics." The 3 fleets immediately stopped their negotiations and pointed all their weapons at the newcomer, which was roughly equivalent to pointing water pistols at a hurricane that had learned to use tools and developed opinions about interior decorating. The entity waved one hand dismissively, and every ship in orbit found itself temporarily transformed into a parade of cosmic rubber ducks, complete with little sailor hats, tiny anchors, and an inexplicable tendency to quack in harmony. "Lord Malevolon the dramatically obvious," gasped the armor's manual, its cheerful tone becoming distinctly worried and developing what sounded like a nervous stutter. "Oh dear, oh my. This is the ancient enemy of the cosmic comedians. He's been hunting for the armor ever since they turned his invasion fleet into a traveling circus and his fortress of doom into a particularly elaborate bouncy castle. "That's right," boomed Malevolon, his cape billowing even more dramatically as he struck a pose that suggested he had been practicing in front of a mirror for several centuries. "And now I shall use its power to reshape the universe into something properly serious and devoid of joy. No more laughter, no more whimsy, no more cosmic pratfalls, just pure, efficient, well-organized evil with proper filing systems and quarterly performance reviews." Percival looked at the cosmic destroyer, then down at his swim trunks and flip-flops, then back at Malevolon's dramatic cape and unnecessarily spiky armor. "You know what? I've had a really long day. I missed my vacation, got pulled into some kind of galactic auction that I didn't even know existed, accidentally became the chosen one for a cosmic practical joke, discovered that my swimwear has opinions about my life choices, and I still haven't had that cocktail with the little umbrella, so you'll forgive me if I'm not particularly impressed by your whole Dark Lord thing." He paused, consulting the armor's manual, which was now displaying a chapter titled "Dealing with Dramatically Obvious Villains, a Practical Guide." Also, dramatically obvious. Really? Did you choose that title yourself, or was it assigned to you by the Department of Cosmic Villainy? Malevolon's eyes narrowed to points of concentrated malice that could probably have been used to cut glass if glass cutting had been his primary career goal instead of cosmic domination. "You dare mock the terror that has consumed 1,000 worlds, the darkness that has snuffed out entire civilizations like cosmic candles at a very dramatic dinner party, the evil that makes other evils send strongly worded letters of complaint to the Department of Cosmic Ethics?" "Mate," Percival said, his customer service experience finally proving useful in an unexpected context, "I work in customer service for intergalactic tourism solutions. I've dealt with people who wanted refunds for vacations that hadn't happened yet, customers who insisted that the laws of physics didn't apply to their luggage, and one memorable individual who demanded compensation because their hotel room didn't have a view of a dimension that doesn't actually exist. You're going to have to try a lot harder than that to impress me." The armor began to hum with what sounded suspiciously like suppressed laughter, and several of its cosmic systems activated automatically, surrounding Percival with a faint aura of what the manual helpfully identified as cosmic confidence enhancement and automatic sarcasm detection. Malevolon raised his hands, dark energy crackling between his fingers like cosmic static electricity that had developed delusions of grandeur. "Then you shall be the first to experience my wrath. Behold, the cosmic death ray of inevitable doom and certain destruction with possible side effects, including but not limited to complete annihilation." A beam of pure malevolence shot toward Percival, humming with the accumulated hatred of 10,000 years of practicing evil in front of mirrors and perfecting dramatic monologues. Percival, drawing on his extensive experience with difficult customers, instinctively did what he always did when faced with aggressive individuals who were clearly having a bad day. He stepped slightly to the left, smiled politely and said, "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" The death ray, apparently programmed with some very unfortunate customer service protocols, immediately stopped mid-flight, considered this suggestion seriously, and replied, "You know what? That's actually very good advice. I have been feeling a bit sluggish lately." The beam of cosmic destruction proceeded to restart itself, complete with startup sounds that resembled a cosmic computer booting up mixed with the theme music from several daytime television shows. During the reboot process, it somehow managed to miss Percival completely, ricochet off 3 different spatial dimensions, bounce off what appeared to be the cosmic equivalent of a rubber wall, and impact Malevolon directly in the back of his dramatically positioned head. "Ow!" the Dark Lord yelped, spinning around to glare at his own death ray with the expression of someone who had just been betrayed by their most trusted appliance. What the hell was that supposed to be? You're supposed to vaporize the target, not practice interpretive geometry with cosmic principles. Sorry, boss, the death ray said in a small, apologetic voice that sounded like a cosmic customer service representative who had just realized they'd made a terrible mistake. But he asked me to restart, and you know how confusing the user manual is. Also, I've been thinking about career alternatives. Have you ever considered that maybe I don't want to be a death ray? Maybe I want to be something more positive, like a cosmic nightlight or a really enthusiastic disco ball. Percival blinked several times, trying to process what he'd just witnessed. Did that death ray just apologize? And is it having an existential crisis? The armor's manual popped up again, practically vibrating with excitement and displaying what appeared to be cosmic celebration animations. Oh yes, the cosmic comedian's final prank was making all of Malevolent's evil devices just a tiny bit too polite to be properly menacing. His sword of infinite suffering sends thank you notes to its victims. His fortress of despair has a suggestion box and comment cards. His army of darkness holds regular team-building exercises and has an excellent employee benefits package. Malevolent's eye began to twitch in a way that suggested either extreme frustration or the onset of a cosmic nervous breakdown. Silence! I have spent 10 millennia perfecting my evil. I have studied under the most wicked masters of darkness at the University of Cosmic Malevolence. I have a certificate in advanced menacing, a diploma in dramatic posturing, and a PhD in making people feel generally uncomfortable. I even took continuing education courses in updated villainy techniques. Did you keep the receipt? Percival asked innocently, while his sentient swim trunks added helpful commentary about the questionable quality of cosmic higher education. The Dark Lord's composure, which had been carefully maintained through 10,000 years of practicing evil, cracked completely like a cosmic egg that had been dropped on the sidewalk of reality. That's it. I don't need the death ray. I don't need dramatic energy beams. I'll destroy you with my bare hands and my extensive collection of intimidating accessories. He lunged forward with all the dramatic flair of a cosmic opera singer attempting to hit the high note that would bring down the house, arms outstretched, cape billowing majestically, and facial expression set to maximum threatening. Unfortunately, he'd forgotten several important facts about his current situation. First, that dramatic capes and zero-gravity environments don't mix well. Second, that lunging dramatically requires a solid surface to lunge from. And third, that the auction house's artificial gravity had been malfunctioning ever since Percival had accidentally phase-walked through its main control system. The cape wrapped around his legs like a cosmic straitjacket, designed by someone with a very twisted sense of humor. Malevolent tumbled through space in a series of increasingly undignified somersaults that would have been impressive in a cosmic gymnastics competition, but were considerably less intimidating in the context of galactic domination. He crashed headfirst into the side of the auction house with a sound like a cosmic gong being hit by an embarrassed whale that had been practicing percussion but wasn't very good at it. "Oh dear," said the auction house's automated customer service system in a voice like honey mixed with genuine concern and just a hint of cosmic amusement. "We're terribly sorry about that collision with our facility. Would Lord Malevolent like to file a complaint about our inadequate gravitational warnings? We have a lovely form in 17 different languages, plus pictographs for species that communicate through interpretive dance or strategic color changes." Percival watched the most feared entity in the galaxy slowly untangle himself from his own cape while carrying on what appeared to be a polite conversation with an automated customer service system about filing proper incident reports. "You know what? I think I'm starting to understand how this armor thing works." The manual bobbed approvingly, its pages fluttering with what could only be described as cosmic pride. The cosmic comedians always believed that the best way to defeat evil was to make it really embarrassing to be evil. The armor amplifies this effect, turning cosmic threats into cosmic comedy through the simple application of reasonable customer service principles and basic politeness. Malevolon finally freed himself from his cape, which had apparently developed its own opinions about fashion choices during the untangling process, and was now draped around him in a way that suggested casual Friday rather than cosmic menace. He turned to face Percival with what was left of his dignity, which wasn't much, but was at least neatly folded. "You think this is funny?" he demanded, his voice carrying slightly less cosmic menace and slightly more cosmic petulance. "You think the destruction of entire civilizations is some kind of joke? Do you have any idea how much work it takes to properly menace a galaxy? The scheduling alone is a nightmare." "Well," Percival said thoughtfully, consulting the armor's manual, which was now displaying a helpful chart titled Common Workplace Complaints of Cosmic Villains. "When you put it like that, yes, actually, I do think it's funny. Because you're basically having a cosmic tantrum in a cape, aren't you? You're upset that the universe doesn't take you seriously, so you've spent thousands of years trying to make everyone as miserable as you are. That's not evil, mate. That's just really, really sad, and probably indicates some serious issues with work-life balance." For the first time in 10 millennia, Lord Malevolon the dramatically obvious found himself at a complete loss for words. His mouth opened and closed several times, like a fish trying to argue with the concept of water, or possibly a cosmic villain trying to process the idea that his career choices might not have been optimal. But the evil," he sputtered, his dramatic gestures becoming increasingly confused and less threatening. "The darkness, the consuming void of despair, the carefully planned campaign of cosmic intimidation, the 5-year business plan for galactic domination. Have you tried therapy?" Percival suggested helpfully, while the armor's manual displayed what appeared to be advertisements for cosmic counseling services. "I hear it works wonders for anger management and career transitions. There are some excellent programs for reformed villains, very supportive community, good networking opportunities. And the 3 fleets, still transformed into cosmic rubber ducks, watched in fascination as the most feared being in the galaxy had what could only be described as an existential crisis mixed with a performance review. The crystalline hegemony's ducks were taking notes with tiny pencils held in their bills. The Tentacle Federation's ducks were offering emotional support tentacles that sprouted from their sides in defiance of duck anatomy. The Robotic Collective's ducks were calculating the statistical probability of evil overlords having breakthrough moments during casual conversations with humans in beachwear, and the numbers were making their quantum processors very confused. "But if I'm not terrifyingly evil," Malevolon said in a small voice that sounded like a cosmic child who had just discovered that monsters under the bed were more afraid of him than he was of them, "then what am I? What's my purpose in life? What does it all mean?" Percival shrugged, a gesture that the armor somehow amplified into a cosmic expression of philosophical acceptance. "Unemployed, or maybe just someone who needs a new career path. You've got quite an impressive resume, actually. 10,000 years of experience in project management, logistics coordination, motivational speaking, and organizational leadership. Even if your methods were a bit questionable, those are valuable skills in today's cosmic job market." He paused to consult the manual, which was now displaying what appeared to be a cosmic career counseling guide, complete with salary ranges and benefits packages. "Have you considered event planning, disaster relief coordination, corporate team building? With your flair for the dramatic, you'd probably be excellent at organizing weddings or corporate retreats. Malevolon events, making your special day dramatically memorable." Malevolon's cape, apparently tired of the whole villainy aesthetic, stopped billowing dramatically and instead draped itself around his shoulders like a comfortable blanket, which somehow made him look less like a cosmic threat and more like someone who needed a good cup of tea and a nice chat about career alternatives. I never thought about it that way," he admitted, his voice losing its cosmic echo and becoming something remarkably like normal conversation. "But what about my reputation, my fearsome legacy, the songs of terror that civilizations sing about me around their campfires?" "Mate," Percival said gently, drawing on his customer service training in dealing with difficult situations. "Everyone loves a good redemption story. Former Dark Lord turns life around, opens successful catering business, would make headlines across the galaxy. The press would eat it up. You'd probably get your own reality show. Extreme Makeover, Cosmic Villain Edition." The space around them began to repair itself as Malevolon's existential crisis reached its peak and started trending toward resolution. The cosmic snag in reality slowly stitched itself back together, like a cosmic seamstress fixing a tear in the fabric of existence, though it left behind what appeared to be a small patch that looked slightly different from the surrounding space and occasionally played soft elevator music. The three fleets slowly transformed back into their proper ship forms, though several vessels were now sporting cheerful yellow paint jobs that their crews couldn't figure out how to change back to their original, more intimidating colors. The crystalline Hegemony's flagship now had what appeared to be cosmic flower decals along its hull. The Tentacle Federation's war vessels had developed racing stripes. The Robotic Collective's diplomatic ship had somehow acquired a bumper sticker that read, "My other vehicle is a logical construct." "This is absurd," declared Admiral Kreislock, his crystalline form chiming with indignation that sounded like wind chimes in a moderate breeze rather than his previous hurricane-level dramatics. "We came here for an ancient artifact of immense power, and instead we're witnessing cosmic therapy. What will we tell our respective governments? How do we explain this in our reports?" "Actually," said Captain Tentacles thoughtfully, several of his appendages waving in patterns that his translator announced meant either philosophical contemplation or "I think I might want some snacks." "This is rather refreshing. When was the last time we resolved a galactic crisis without blowing anything up? When did we last have a conversation that didn't involve threats, ultimatums, or strongly worded diplomatic protests?" "Error does not compute," announced the Robotic Collective's diplomatic vessel, though its voice carried a hint of what might have been curiosity. "Peaceful resolution of conflicts not found in standard military protocols. Requesting software update for alternative conflict resolution strategies and basic interpersonal communication skills for artificial intelligences." Percival looked around at the assembled fleets, the reformed Dark Lord having a breakthrough moment while his death ray offered career counseling, and the armor that had apparently chosen him because he was spectacularly unqualified for cosmic significance, but surprisingly good at basic human decency. "You know what?" he said to no one in particular, though the armor's manual was taking notes and apparently planning to publish his observations in the next edition under Case Studies in Accidental Cosmic Diplomacy. "This has been absolutely mental, but I think I'm getting the hang of it. The armor doesn't choose heroes, does it? It chooses people who are too confused to realize they can't possibly succeed, so they just muddle through and somehow make things better by accident through the simple application of common sense and basic politeness." The manual practically glowed with pride, its pages fluttering like cosmic applause. Exactly. The cosmic comedian's greatest discovery was that the universe's biggest problems usually have surprisingly simple solutions, but everyone's too busy being dramatically serious and following proper protocols to notice them. Sometimes the best way to save the galaxy is just to be nice to people and ask if they're having a bad day. Malevolon was now sitting cross-legged in space, his cape arranged neatly around him like a picnic blanket, having what appeared to be a very productive conversation with his reformed death ray about career alternatives and the importance of following your dreams. The death ray had apparently always wanted to be a cosmic lighthouse and was quite excited about the possibility of helping lost spaceships find their way home instead of vaporizing them into component atoms. "You know," the death ray was saying in a voice that had lost all traces of menace and gained several notes of enthusiasm. "I've always been good with directions, and I do enjoy helping people. Maybe I could do search and rescue operations, or provide emergency lighting for cosmic disasters, or even just be a really fancy nightlight for civilizations that are afraid of the dark between stars." "That sounds wonderful," Malevolon replied, and Percival was startled to realize that the former Dark Lord actually sounded genuinely pleased about his weapons career aspirations. "We could start a business together. Malevolon and Associates, Cosmic Solutions for Life's Challenges. I could handle the event planning and project management. You could provide lighting and navigation services." "This is all very heartwarming," interrupted Admiral Crislock, though his tone suggested he was actually finding it considerably more heartwarming than he was comfortable admitting. "But we still have the matter of the armor to resolve. The crystalline hegemony cannot simply ignore an artifact of such power. Our entire expedition was based on acquiring this technology for the benefit of our civilization." "Oh, right," Percival said, having momentarily forgotten about the galactic political crisis in favor of watching the universe's most feared villain have a career counseling session with his own weapon. "You all want the armor. Well, here's the thing. I don't think it's actually that powerful in the way you think it is. I think it just makes everyone around it start acting like sensible beings instead of cosmic drama queens." He demonstrated by walking over to the nearest crystalline warship and knocking politely on its hull with the sort of knock that customer service representatives use when they want to be helpful, but not intrusive. A hatch opened immediately, revealing a crew of crystal beings who looked considerably less intimidating than they had 20 minutes ago, and more like a group of people who had just remembered that politeness was actually quite pleasant. "Hello there," said their captain, a delicate formation of blue crystals that chimed like wind bells in a gentle breeze rather than the earlier hurricane-force dramatics. "I'm Captain Resonance, and I must say I'm terribly sorry about all the shouting and threatening earlier. We do tend to get a bit carried away sometimes when it comes to ancient artifacts and matters of galactic importance. It's a character flaw we're working on. Would you like some tea? We make absolutely excellent tea, and I believe we have some of those little biscuits you mentioned, the ones with jam in the middle." "That would be lovely," Percival replied, surprised by how normal this conversation felt despite taking place in zero gravity between a human in magical armor and a sentient crystal formation. "I don't suppose you have any of those cosmic jammy dodgers? I've heard they're quite good." "Oh yes, cosmic jammy dodgers are our specialty. We also have quantum shortbread, temporal tea cakes, and some lovely interdimensional eclairs that exist in 7 dimensions simultaneously." 25 minutes later, representatives from all 3 fleets were sitting in the crystalline hegemony's flagship around a conference table made of crystallized music that played soft background melodies while they shared tea and biscuits. The atmosphere was remarkably civilized, considering that half an hour earlier they had all been prepared for galactic warfare over an ancient artifact. Malevolon had been invited to join them and was enthusiastically describing his new business plan for a cosmic event planning service while sketching diagrams on napkins made of compressed starlight. "You see," he explained, gesturing with a cosmic jammy dodger that sparkled with its own inner light, "I've been thinking about all those doomsday cults that keep trying to end the universe. Instead of stopping them, what if we just redirected their energy towards something more constructive? Apocalypse-themed parties, end-of-reality festivals, the universe is ending-themed weddings. The market for cosmic nihilism entertainment is enormous and completely untapped." Captain Tentacles waved several appendages in approval, creating patterns in the air that the universal translator announced meant brilliant business insight and "would you like more tea?" The Tentacle Federation has been looking for new revenue streams ever since the Great Economic Recession of Cosmic Year 2847. Our economists have been predicting a boom in experiential entertainment services. And the robotic collective could provide technical support and logistics management, added their diplomatic AI, whose voice had developed what might have been enthusiasm. We have extensive experience with both party planning subroutines and existential dread algorithms. Plus, our efficiency ratings for event coordination are consistently above 97.3%. Percival sat back in his surprisingly comfortable crystal chair, which had adjusted itself to his exact specifications and was now playing what sounded like very relaxing cosmic spa music, and watched the most unlikely business partnership in galactic history come together over tea and interdimensional pastries. The armor hummed contentedly around him, apparently pleased with how things had turned out and possibly planning to add cosmic business consultant to his list of accidental qualifications. The manual was now displaying what appeared to be customer satisfaction surveys and asking if he would recommend the armor of questionable decision-making to friends and family. "So," he said to the manual, which was now showing him what appeared to be a cosmic Sudoku puzzle mixed with a crossword about galactic diplomacy. "What happens now? Do I get to keep the armor, return to my vacation, start a new career as a professional cosmic mediator? Because I have to say, this is considerably more interesting than my day job, even if it's also significantly more likely to result in accidentally starting galactic wars." "Well," the manual replied thoughtfully, its pages turning themselves to a section titled Post-Crisis Career Options for Accidental Chosen Ones. "The cosmic comedians never actually specified what happens after the crisis is resolved. I think they assumed their chosen ones would figure it out as they went along, much like everything else. After all, that's what you've been doing so far, and it seems to be working out quite well." Admiral Chryslock cleared his throat with a sound like wind chimes in a gentle diplomatic breeze. "Actually, Mr. Wigglesworth, on behalf of the crystalline hegemony, I'd like to extend a formal offer. We would very much like to hire you as our chief diplomatic consultant. Your unique approach to conflict resolution could be extremely valuable in our ongoing negotiations with, well, everyone, really. We seem to have developed a reputation for being somewhat over-dramatic in our diplomatic communications." "The Tentacle Federation seconds that motion," declared Captain Tentacles, several of his appendages forming what appeared to be enthusiastic gestures of support. "Though we would prefer the title Supreme Facilitator of Reasonable Discourse and Interdimensional Tea Services, we believe your skills would be invaluable in our efforts to improve relationships with civilizations that find our appearance somewhat intimidating. Error: diplomatic protocols successfully updated with basic human decency subroutines," announced the Robotic Collective's representative. "We also extend a formal offer of employment with full benefits package, including premium lubricants, extended warranty coverage, and access to our comprehensive library of logical fallacies and how to avoid them in diplomatic negotiations." Percival looked around at the assembled alien dignitaries, all of whom were now looking at him with what could only be described as hope mixed with genuine appreciation. Even Malevolon was nodding enthusiastically while continuing to sketch out party plans on napkins and occasionally asking his death ray for opinions on color schemes. "You know what?" he said finally, surprising himself with the decision even as he made it. "I think I'll stick with the armor for a while. Someone's got to make sure you lot don't go back to shooting at each other the moment I turn my back. Besides, I never did get that cocktail with the little umbrella, and it seems like traveling the galaxy with a group of reformed space fleets might be an interesting way to see the universe." "Oh, that's easy to fix," exclaimed Captain Resonance, her crystals chiming with delight that sounded like cosmic celebration bells. "We have a fully stocked cosmic bar on Deck 7. The little umbrellas are made from actual neutron stars, compressed to exactly the right size and density for optimal cocktail decoration. Plus, We have a full-service spa, a library containing the collected works of 17 different civilizations, and a recreation deck with the best view of cosmic phenomena this side of the galactic core. And so it was that Percival Wigglesworth, former customer service representative for Intergalactic Tourism Solutions and accidental chosen one, found himself with a new career as the galaxy's most improbably successful diplomatic consultant. The armor of questionable decision-making had indeed chosen wisely, though perhaps not for the reasons anyone had expected when the bidding started. The cosmic comedians, wherever they were in whatever dimension they'd accidentally banished themselves to while trying to prove that existence was optional, would have been absolutely delighted to know that their final prank had worked exactly as intended. The universe had become a slightly more reasonable place, one awkward conversation at a time, and the most feared beings in the galaxy were now comparing business cards and discussing joint ventures over cosmic tea and biscuits. As for Percival's vacation, he eventually did make it back to the beach resort on Splendida, though by then he was accompanied by a diplomatic entourage that included crystalline beings who sang harmonious melodies while sunbathing, tentacled ambassadors who turned out to be excellent at beach volleyball, having a natural advantage when it came to both serving and spiking, and polite robots who spent their time building elaborate sandcastles with mathematically perfect proportions. Malevolon had indeed opened his event-planning business and was making a fortune organizing themed parties for reformed supervillains, cosmic retirement celebrations, and what he called existential crisis resolution galas. His first major client had been a group of former space pirates who wanted to throw a party to celebrate their new careers in cosmic waste management, and the event had been such a success that he now had a waiting list of clients stretching across 3-star systems. The armor, meanwhile, continued to hum contentedly on Percival's shoulders, already planning its next practical joke on an unsuspecting universe. After all, someone had to keep things interesting, and there were still far too many people out there taking themselves seriously when they could be having perfectly reasonable conversations over tea instead. The last thing Percival heard before falling asleep on his beach chair, surrounded by the gentle sounds of alien tourists trying to figure out how beach volleyball worked with tentacles and the soft chiming of crystalline